Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to All Over the Place, the official podcast of Media Pub Live. With us tonight, Marty in the house. Hello, Marty. And Christine.
Hello.
And with us tonight, actually, Jim, let me just very quickly get out of the way. Jim, Jim Culver, typical co-host, is not with us tonight. Jim's on vacation. So if Marty's not missing, Jim's missing. We're just getting as much of the gang together as possible. But, tonight, as you can kind of see, well, if you're watching, yeah, you will definitely see. But if it's never been known before where my alma mater allegiances lie, you're going to get it full score tonight. We've got two very special guests. And it's a Penn State themed show yet again here on All Over the Place. Want to welcome to our studios across the country, coast to coast, Andy Vodopia from Exit 56 Publications. Welcome, Andy.
Hello.
And also we've got Landon Tengwall joining us, offensive lineman for the Nittany Lions. Welcome, Landon.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's an honor to have you here. And just very quickly, Landon, Marty up there in the right-hand corner, it looks like on my screen, he may look familiar to you because he was actually able to get onto the field in the post-game ceremonies at the Rose Bowl this year. Run around. I'm not sure if you had a tall one in your hand, Marty, or not, but you were partying down there with my Nittany Lions. I was jealous, but I was so proud of you at the same time. So you guys may have already crossed paths.
Hooligan
from
birth.
I love to hear it. Everybody was having a good time after that win, so it was good to hear.
Rain, Schmaine, we were partying there in Pasadena, absolutely. So
it was fantastic.
So the reason we've got Andy and Landon on the show is Andy has, with Exit 56 Publications, has put an initiative together doing children's books. And he's got it not just at Penn State. And Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, it's also at University of Michigan. Or are there any other schools in addition to Penn State and Michigan right now?
Just those two right now.
And why don't you give our audience the quick lowdown on exactly what you're doing and why, what the inspiration was for doing these books?
Yeah, so I worked for IBM for 40 years. I retired a couple of years ago and wanted to keep my mind busy and loved sports my whole life. And it was just about the time NIL was coming about. And my son actually had the idea, so I always give him credit on these shows. He said, "Hey, Dad, you should really do children's books with college athletes since NIL just came about." And that's really what started it. So I was in on the very beginning. And literally NIL is 2 years old as of 8 days ago, July 1st. And that's when I started. I put my first book out about a year later. And then I did the second and third book with Drew and Landon. So couldn't be more thrilled about the way everything has gone so far.
And for those of all over the place audience members, name, image, likeness is what NIL. And Landon, for you, with the name, image, likeness, aside from the financial aspects of it, what benefits do you see as a student with NIL?
Yeah, obviously it's very nice benefit financially. It's gives guys a little bit of a cushion and stuff like that. But this book is kind of give me a different perspective on NIL. I think this is kind of what kind of.
Oh shoot!
Uh-oh.
We had the Eric Cartman freeze there.
Yeah, we had lost connection a little bit. Hopefully he'll be able to get reconnected real quickly. It's all right. We can continue.
Yeah. Oh, so back on you with Andy. So, what was the inspiration behind just children's book and in terms of reaching out then to the different universities and different players? How did you come about with that?
Yeah, so I actually contacted every Power 5 school in the beginning. So there were like 100 different schools that I contacted. You may know that NIL, when it started, the rules were all over the place. So believe it or not, you have Texas and Florida, who are two of the biggest schools now involved in NIL. Back then, they couldn't even speak to you because the state laws were such that they were literally, when you called them, they weren't allowed to speak to you. When I got in touch with Penn State, which was about a year later, they had Dan Cabala, whose title was something to do with NIL. So he was able to be a help of putting me in touch with the athletes. And again, Landon was interested in doing the book, and I was thrilled. I actually asked Dan specifically about Landon because he was one of the top-rated offensive linemen coming out of the country. And by the way, just for the record, I love offensive linemen. I think anybody who really knows football knows that is where the offense is. I don't care how great a quarterback you are, how great a running back you are. If you're on your back or there's no hole, it doesn't happen. So anyhow, it looks like Landon's back now, so you could go back to him.
So yeah, Landon, unfortunately, we got cut off there for a little bit for you. So let's just circle back to what you're going to say about the advantages there with.
Nope.
And there he went again.
Yeah.
We'll try again. He's going to come back in. I'm confident we'll get him back. There he is.
And there he is.
All right.
Sorry about that, guys.
It's all good.
It's one of the few times you'll hear me disparage Happy Valley, but sometimes the connections there aren't as good as they should be. But
That's okay. I like the little South Park reference. I'm a big fan. So I heard the Eric Cartman reference. I like it.
Cartman doing those Zoom classroom meetings. There you go.
Yeah. But if you want me to hop, or you want to re-ask the question?
Yeah. So just obviously, aside from the financial aspects of it, what other advantages do you see with name, image, likeness for you student athletes?
Yeah, one really cool thing about this book that's kind of allowed me to do is get back in touch with the community. First, it kind of started off with going back to my original elementary school. I've been back 2 or 3 times now. Got to interact with the kids, read to all the kids. I actually got to go to the book fair with the book. I was out at recess with them. We were playing football. They loved me reading to them, everybody. It was such a good time. Went from there actually, and we actually had a team trip. About 10 of us on the team were going to Guatemala to donate shoes. We were working with a nonprofit called Souls for Souls. So we went down there. It was a really cool experience. But through talking with Andy, and he worked really hard on it, and we actually ended up getting a total of 135 books donated, and still more counting, for Guatemala. And I got to take down 135 books and give them to the kids down there. They loved it. It was super cool. I have pictures on my Instagram. My Instagram's just my full name. Anybody wants to check it out, just my full name and Instagram. So yeah, that was a really cool experience. Came back, went to a couple different schools around PA. So it's just a really cool experience to get back in the community, interact, especially with the kids, to be able to go to their place of school and just kind of be able to see everybody. The place, I went up in Wellsboro, PA, and I went to every single classroom, signed something for every single kid, make sure everybody had something. So it was like a really fun experience, and like hopefully they're really just fans for life, for their life, of me, of the team. So that's kind of what we're trying to pursue. And I think that's one thing the NIL has kind of done is in the past, there was really no reason to go out in the community. Guys, they weren't even allowed to really. You get punished to go do events and stuff like that. There were just so many restrictions. And so people, and then we got our helmets on all the time, so people don't really know who we are, what we're about. They don't know our personalities. I think that's a huge thing that NIL, especially with social media, things like this book, people are able to see our personalities, see like how we are. And I think kind of people lose sight that we're just normal, especially when we're college athletes. I mean, we're just normal kids, just college kids, just having fun. It just so happens, we play football, one of the best universities in America. But I think it's really cool with perspective it can, NIL can give other people, and it allows us to achieve in the community.
Hey,
so you're recruiting the next little round of Nittany Lions. Is Coach Franklin going to give you like a little some recruiter bonus points?
Yeah, no, I always end up with the recruiting dinners. So I always get assigned to recruit. So I always have a recruit for especially OV weekend and stuff like that. So I'm always working hard on the recruits. So y'all can count on that.
Nice.
Hey, I want to jump in for a second on this too. So the feedback that I get after Landon's visits is just tremendous. I mean, the job he does with these kids, I can't tell you how many people come back to me and say, thank you for having Landon come out. He is so great with the kids. We just recently had somebody come after that Wellsboro visit. The guy printed out like a professional photo of him and his daughter with Landon, and mailed it to Landon, and Landon signed it, giving it back. And he says, like, Landon is her idol. And think about what Landon just said. 2 or 3 years ago, he's got a helmet on number 58, the only time they would say anything is if there's a holding penalty, right? Now you get to go out there and people not only want his autograph, but I got to tell you, if Landon is not the most popular guy on that team now, I don't know who is, because I just get feedback that there's so many Landon Tengwall fans out there. And it's really a credit to him because he's doing all this without appearance fees. And it just, he's just doing a great job. And it really does represent Penn State very well. And I also want to throw out a shout out to the people who did donate books for Landon's trip. Again, it says something about the Penn State people. So it's just been a tremendous experience just to see how all of this has happened. And last thing for me is on this is, so my granddaughter is like one of Landon's biggest fans. My daughter says that she has literally read Landon's book 50 times to her. Now, if you know anything about 4-year-olds, they don't mind seeing the loop going over and over again, but she actually can finish the sentences on a lot of the pages. So that's a real personal aspect of it, but it also, I don't know how many people are out there doing the same thing, but I'm guessing there's a lot.
And Andy, I thought it was really interesting. I read in one of the articles about how you work with underclassmen, particularly. Can you explain
so
why
this
that is for people who aren't aware with your process?
Well, there's a selfish reason for that. So one, it does take 6 months to do a book. And although my main motive is not to make money, I would like to at least break even. And I really need 2 years worth of selling to do that. So that's why it's been with underclassmen.
Awesome. And I also saw that you have some requirements for who you work with as well.
Help me out on that one.
Well, I mean, you don't want just any college player, right?
No. Listen, it's gotta be the Landons of the world, right? One, I say right up front to the kids, and it's always the parent and the kid. So if you're not the type of person who's going to enjoy doing the things that Landon's doing, please don't do the book. Because again, nobody's going to make a lot of money doing this. What you're going to do is get the experience of having a book about you and getting to meet people. And I really do think it's good for public speaking because even though Landon's with maybe 25 elementary kids, there are still adults in the room, and anything that's out there that gives experience in public speaking, you can't go wrong with that.
And I'm going to get a little homer here again, but that man who's over my right shoulder, for those watching this, Landon, it's going to sound like I'm slobbering right now, but you are success with honor, and I'm so glad that Coach Franklin has continued on that mission statement that Coach Paterno did for years. And you exemplify that to a T, and I'm glad with the Souls for Souls going down to Guatemala and interacting with the kids. Thank you for you are Penn State, and I think that's very cool. And Andy, I'm glad you've tapped into that and been able to experience the Penn State thing with Landon.
I tell people I hit the lottery when Landon agreed to do this book. And
I think we've made another guest blush. This is good.
No, I sincerely mean that. I tell people all the time. I mean, I was talking to my son last week and talking about the books because he's really a big sports fan and into the books. And he said it after listening to me. He said, Landon is the reason why you got into this. And I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, it's never been about money. It's been about working with the athletes. It's about seeing the athletes go out there and interact with the community. And it's about having a personal relationship. I feel, and I tell this to Landon, I'm going to tell it to everybody, I feel like I'm part of Team Tengwall. If me and Landon don't talk 5 and 10 years from now, I'd be very disappointed. This isn't a business. This is a friendship. And it's something that, again, I feel part of his team.
And Landon, what's it been like for you? Have any of your teammates been razzing you since you've got an animated version of yourself? Now you say you're a South Park fan. What's it like to see yourself as an animated version?
Yeah, they always, they don't make fun of you, but they always mention it. They're like, oh,
You're an offensive lineman. No one's really going to make fun of you. So
well, yeah, but sorry, we don't have a book. They'll make little jabs at me, and all that stuff. And people, sometimes people will ask other people to sign the book too, and they're like, oh, Landon, can I, do I have permission to sign? So they'll mess with me a little bit, but it's a good time. Obviously, we went down to Guatemala. The whole team was actually, all the guys down there were signing the books for everybody, and all the kids loved it. So that was really awesome. But overall, it's like I said, it's been a fantastic experience. Kind of like Andy touched on. Obviously, you're not gonna make too much money off this stuff. It really is. This is kind of something I really love. I have a lot of little cousins. I've always grew up around a lot of kids, so I love just being around kids, giving back to the community, just being around, impacting people's day, even if it's just one positive interaction. That means a lot to me. Be able to say, I affected someone's day, in a positive way. So that stuff is really cool.
And Landon, now that you've written a book, you gonna write another one?
I don't know. We're still working on getting this one out there to all the Knitting Nation and etc. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe in the future.
I said when Landon's in the NFL. Maybe we will do another book, and maybe we'll gear it. I know Landon's very interested in education, and maybe we will be doing another book, and it might actually be more educational with featuring Landon, in the NFL. So it's certainly on my mind, and it's something I am thinking about. Landon, like I told you, we're going to be together for 5 or 10 years, and I could just see when you're hosting that Super Bowl, I'll be in the background holding up your book.
I love to hear it. I love it.
Hey, Landon, I think before the next book, maybe you got a little work to do. Something in the weight room there with that clean record.
Oh man, we're working.
You got to represent for your old lineman there. You can't have some little running back getting.
I hear you. I don't know, man. I hear you. That's one explosive running back, though. I'll tell you what. But no, absolutely.
That is a monster lift.
Yeah, we got testing week coming up this week, so we get into tomorrow. We kind of got the combine. We do a lot of 40 times, shuttle times, that stuff. So and then all the weight room numbers this week. So all the guys were pumped up. We're excited for this week in the weight room and in Haluba testing all that good stuff.
Well, good luck. Enjoy.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And what was it like about both to Andy and Landon? Well, I'll go Landon first with what was it like, having the companion book with the guy whose butt and front side you're protecting? What was it like having Drew Allar also having a book with you?
It's very cool. It's very cool. We'll talk about it all the time. Drew. I'll just touch on Drew as a QB though. I'm sure that the fan base loves hearing about him. He's awesome. We're really excited for him. He's actually become really tight with him. He's one of my best friends. Love to play golf with him. The whole team's learning how to golf. That's the new thing. I actually just came from a tee time. I just finished about an hour ago. So the whole team's on the golf kit. So I play golf with Drew all the time. So we're always talking and stuff. But no, we both love it. Obviously, I love to get out there. Obviously, Drew's a little more popular. He might get mugged if he goes out to the appearances. So, it's a little easier for me to get out there and do stuff. But Drew's an awesome guy, and I'm really excited for him and what he's about to do in the future.
What'd you shoot today?
Oh man, I just played front 9, and I got my 18. I don't know if anybody plays a lot of golf, but 18 birdies. It tracks everything. You can see how far away you are from the pin and all that stuff. I shot 46 on the front 9.
Nice.
I'm new. It's not too bad. It's okay.
No,
that's a legitimate score.
That's a golf score. That's not a new guy score.
Yeah, no, it's decent. It's decent.
Hey, by the way, that's another thing, Eric. I know you have the book. I don't know if the others do. One of the things that surprised me working with all the athletes is how they're not just football players as far as how athletic they are. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you have the book, one of the first pages. Landon was an unbelievable water polo player.
Right.
I mean, think about it. So you've got the water polo, you've got the football, you got the golf. these guys are not just hitting the weight rooms and smashing heads. I mean, these guys are extremely athletic. And again, I don't know why I was surprised at that, but I'm not surprised at Land. I'm a little surprised at 46 is, like I said, a legitimate. People who play a lot of golf aren't hitting that, but I'm not surprised. And I bet you crank some pretty good tee shots, I'm guessing.
Yeah. No, I got some good drives off. But yeah, as you mentioned, obviously love playing golf. I actually I tried to talk to Coach Franklin, but I figured out all we have is a club water polo team, because I wanted to talk to him about maybe trying to play a little bit, but you can't play on a club team if you're on scholarship. It's against the rules. I found that out. So my brother was a really fantastic goalie. We both played at the Naval Academy, actually. So my dad grew up playing. He actually became All-American. So we grew up. I'm about 15 minutes from base. I live in Annapolis, Maryland. So I would go to practice every day there when I was younger. Something I really loved. I love water polo. I was pretty good too. I was like 8 or 9 playing with like 14-year-olds, and I would be in there holding my own. I was, obviously a big kid, but it was something I really love. I was born in the water, so I love the water. I love the pool, all that good stuff. So yeah, that's definitely something interesting about me. I won a couple junior Olympics out in California. I got to travel a lot when I was younger with water polo, so it was a really cool experience for me.
So Andy, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Greg. Very quick, I want to jump in on that one because as a brother who, my brothers and I like to push each other athletically and academically growing up. And, I mentioned your teammates kind of ragging on you for the book. And, coming from a competitive family, which I learned on your Penn State Schuylkill appearance a few weeks ago. What's it like within the family? You've got the book. What's it like with the siblings going after you?
No, they definitely get after me. They poke fun of me too, just like the teammates. But no, definitely competitive. I mean, when you're the youngest of 4 boys, you kind of get, you get roughed up growing up. You're always just trying to keep up with your older brothers. I think that's one of the reasons. I'm kind of, as mature. I like to think I'm somewhat mature. So I think that's kind of that the reason I'm the way I am today. Definitely. Was blessed growing up, had a great family, just, great people around me. Definitely, just super supportive. But my brothers have been awesome. They love me. They'll come to my games, all that stuff. They've been fantastic. They'll hook me up, if I ever need some motivation, stuff like that. So they've been a real great support system for me.
Well, I'm the oldest of 3, and I keep warning Christine's 2 older boys, be careful with the youngest one because they will get bigger than you. Quite likely at some point.
That is for sure. I am the biggest as well. I'm the youngest and the biggest, so it catches up to them.
You hear that, folks? Be nice to your younger siblings. They may get bigger.
Yeah, and I am a mom of 3 football playing boys, high school and elementary school, and if they end up half as good as you, I'll be a proud mama. So good job.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. But Andy, I did want to ask you, coming from the tech and very corporate world of IBM, there's a craft to children's writing. How do you make that transition and working with the athletes as well and capturing the real voice or the feeling of them in the books as well?
Yeah. So I always say it's really their books. So I work with Landon and his family and all the information is their information, and then I just put it to words. But the real challenge for me was just actually physically doing the book. It took all of my 40 years of corporate to get this book published out. Even I had my doubts if I was able to pull it off. I mean, I work with people in India. I work with people in China. It's really, there's a lot of multinational effort that goes into the book. So it's just real interesting because my illustrator is actually in India and she wouldn't know a football from a baseball. So when you do the story and you ask her to do the illustrations, her interpretation of some of the things comes back very unique. So it takes a while. And, the wording really, I don't think is that difficult because it's not my words. It's Landon's words. It's his father's words. It's everything else, the mechanics of doing it, that really, that was the difficult part. I do have a kind of a funny story. You were asking when you asked Landon about the book with him and Drew. So Landon was actually my first choice that I reached out to Penn State. He was the guy that I asked for, and it really was because of he was an underclassman and he's one of the highest rated offensive linemen. So Dan gave my information to him, and he got back to me and he said he'd like to do the book. And then Dan goes, did you know we actually have the #1 recruited quarterback in the country coming in? And to be honest with you, I didn't, because he's not playing yet. And he goes, would you be interested in maybe, reaching out to him? And I said, #1 quarterback in the country? Yeah, I might be interested. Yeah, I'll think about it. And luckily, again, Dan put me in touch with them. And, I always send a mock cover because, again, you can look at the cover and a guy will know if he wants to do it or not. You talk about, getting razzed and everything. There would be some people who might look at it and say, oh, this is too corny for me. But the matter of the fact is most people don't. And that's how that came about. I mean, Drew liked the idea. I sent him a mock cover. And so next thing I know, I had, 2 Penn State athletes. And again, I didn't know how that would work out, but it's worked out really well. I think they feed off of each other. So it's really worked out well. And I want to add that growing up in the Northeast, I was a big Penn State fan, a big Joe Pa fan. So, it was a thrill to me to be working with Penn State.
That's called kismet or something. Serendipity?
Serendipity. And I'm just getting away from the book for a second again, because I'm a youth. I'm a sports official, mainly baseball and softball. But coming and watching kids and just knowing my growing up, multiple sports was the thing, and now there's just so much specializing. I just want to get your take on what your experience as a multi-sport athlete, how that turned you into making football your focus, but all those multiple sports, how they helped you as a football player.
Yeah, I think, first off, it kind of just benefited me being able to just do everything. I grew up playing flag football, basketball, water polo, just kind of doing every sport under the sun. That's my kind of opinion, is that's kind of how it should be. I think if you get a kid started in a sport at 8 years old and get them trainers and all this stuff, they're going to get burnt out. They're kids, kids need to have fun. They need to enjoy sports. It's not about getting a scholarship when you're 8 years old and, 10, whatever. I think, it's really about enjoying sports, learning, all those traits to build upon, responsibility, leadership, taking accountability for your actions, those type of things. That's kind of, and you kind of learn different perspectives from each sport too. Obviously kind of, me having that back from a bunch of different sports. So I feel actually pretty strongly about that. I think, kids should be all playing all different types of sports. But, I think that's kind of what I did. And then I got to high school and I decided to just stay with football. I actually tried shot put for like 2 weeks. Wasn't any good. Funny story though, I met Devon Elise though. And obviously, you know who he is. If you're a Penn State fan, you know Devon. That's where I met him at. I met him like 8 years ago. He's one of our starting defensive tackles. And so I met him at shot put. But yeah, I tried shot put. I was no good at that, so I just stuck with football. And the offers were rolling in. So I said, I'll stick with this. I think this sounds good.
Well, definitely glad you picked Penn State. So part of that Maryland pipeline that Coach Franklin's been cultivating for years now. So, and again, success with honor. I cannot say that enough. It's I'm going to sound like an idiot parent here, but I'm proud of the fact that you're representing now with Andy's book and just with the name, image, likeness stuff. And because Penn State, the university, wanted to set that up. Success with honor. What was the motto they went with, taken from Coach Paterno, and Landon, you defined that to a T. So thank you. Uh-oh. I got to quit fawning over people. They just disappear on us. Now, Andy, with because right now you've been did the underclassmen part. You've got the books out now, And now with the Michigan books, are they in the same age bracket as?
Yeah, they basically are the same thing, the same design. Again, the Michigan book is with with 3 offensive linemen.
Okay.
They all wanted to do it together, and it's another case where the parents had a lot to do with it. I'm actually really tight with all 3 moms. I still talk to them. I won't say daily, but I certainly talk to them every couple of weeks. And if there's an article, one of the things people always ask me is, do you want to do a whole bunch of books? And the answer I always give is I really don't, because I want to feel like I'm working with it. If I did 20 books, I might not be able to do this interview because I'd have to look at my schedule. Oh, I'm doing it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like anything that comes out on either a Michigan athlete that I do or Landon or Drew, I am all over that. I spend 2 or 3 hours a day going through, Twitter, Instagram, all of the sporting stuff. I'm on every website for Penn State, every website for Michigan, all of the Facebook things. So I give them feedback when I see it. Like if an article comes up, I'll just shoot and say, hey, did you see this article came up? Oh, did you see Landon was mentioned here? Oh, Drew was mentioned here. So if I did 20 books, then it would become a job as opposed to something I really love doing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm going to be reading the sports pages for 2 or 3 hours a day anyhow. So this gives me a little extra incentive. And actually was at the Michigan Penn State game at Michigan last year. And that's where actually I met Drew and his parents. Was supposed to meet up with Landon's father, and the Michigan doesn't have good Wi-Fi. So we were in the stadium, and once you get in the stadium, you lose all connectivity. You can't make a phone call or anything else. So it wound up that we actually did not get to meet each other. But another cool story with that is, ironically, I was staying at the Penn State Hotel. We're talking Landon. I don't know if you heard the conversation, but I was at the Michigan Penn State game last year that was in Ann Arbor, and was actually at the Penn State Hotel. And it was really cool. I didn't even know it at the time, but I was next to Olu's parents for like an hour just talking to him. So I feel a little connection there too. So it was kind of cool. And like I said, I wish.
And I'm because of the connection here that you've done, Andy, with the Michigan school. I'm going to refrain from any negativity that I usually have for the Wolverines. So I'm going to be nice about their Wi-Fi and everything else there, and just forget the past. We're just focused on the game coming up later this year in Happy Valley.
Yeah. So that I'm going to give you a little prediction here. It's going to be Penn State 62. Michigan 61. Both offensive lines doing tremendous. Games coming down to the wire. Balls on the 1 yard line. They scored a touchdown to tie it up. They're going for 2 to win the game. Allen's going to have the ball. He's going to be looking. Everybody's going to say he's going to go to Singleton, going wide. He fakes the pitch to Singleton. He sneaks behind number 58 and walks into the end zone untouched for the victory. Tengwall's been doing it all game. He knocks out 2 people, and Drew walks in for the 2-pointer, and Penn State walks off with the victory. And by the way, folks, they're chancing now for making the championship game, looking mighty good with that win over Michigan.
And waiting for them in the end zone, buried underneath the turf, are copies of the books. They will hold them up high after the touchdown.
Well, I'll tell you what, that wouldn't break my heart if that would have happened.
And we have this recorded, so we'll definitely be pushing that out if that happens.
And I don't want the Michigan guys to get mad at me. So I did say that the Michigan line, it was the offensive lines dominated all day. It was just that last 2-point conversion. You knew they were going over Tengwall, and nobody was going to stop them.
Yeah, Landon, make sure have a deal with the Lion. Make sure he has something in the megaphone or something like that.
You could hide it in the goalpost pad.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what the rules are. I actually thought about, the kids. My son used to be one of these kids for Georgia Tech that camp out overnight, and they're in the first row, right? Usually have to camp overnight for the student section. And I said, I wonder if I could actually give them a book and just have them hold it up. But I don't know how that would go over.
Yes.
And
Christine,
listen,
you're marketing. You make this happen.
well, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I'd have to actually check that out. It's funny when I was telling you about the being at the Penn State Hotel in Michigan, Coach Franklin actually came by when I had the book, and I actually took, and by the way, at that point, they only had Drew's book, but I actually took Drew's book and actually put it under the table because I didn't know what the rules were. The last thing I wanted was he goes, "Hey, look, it's Drew's book," picks up the book. Somebody snaps a picture. Next thing you know, Drew's out because he's in trouble. So I don't know what the rules are, but Landon, I always have your back and stuff like that. I'm not going to do anything to get you in trouble.
I know that. I know that's right. I appreciate it. Andy's my guy, man. He's done a lot for me. Been awesome.
And camping out for a football game. I lived in Snyder Hall, the closest walk 6 times a year, so I didn't have to worry about camping out.
The students do that, though. I mean, those are the kind of those are the guys that are going to be fans for life, right? They camp out overnight. They have a little party there. I know nobody can drink when they're under 21, but you never know if somebody might sneak something in there, and they have they make it a good night, and then they're ready for the game.
I had enough Jamesons for everybody on the day of the Rose Bowl, so I took care of that.
By the way, for the Rose Bowl, I actually was at the Penn State game watching party in Atlanta. It was pretty cool. They probably had I'm going to guess 150 people in their bar. And it was just crazy, right? Because it was a great game. And, I always say winning is very underrated. So it's a lot more fun when you're winning.
That's for sure.
And Penn State fans, they know how to party. I back in '94, I traveled to Pennsylvania on business, and I was just there by myself in the hotel. And one day at work, one of the ladies from the office came down and said, "We have one Penn State ticket. You want to go?" I love football. I'm not necessarily a Penn State fan, but I sure liked them, sure respected Joe Pa. So heck yeah. So I got in this hollow utility van and drove 6 hours from Reading to Happy Valley. Best decision I ever made. Got there super early, tailgated the whole thing. It was homecoming against Purdue. And the student section's unbelievable. But at the end of it, it took me forever to get out of that parking lot. And not because everybody was trying to leave at once. Nobody was leaving. Nobody was going anywhere. Everybody was still partying. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm sleeping in a van. It was a great time. And what a beautiful place to go to school.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I got a quick story about the Rose Bowl after we won. So we, all week we were coming in the back because it was a pretty nice hotel. It was right near the crypto.com arena, right there on that kind of campus in LA that they have where they have a bunch of restaurants. So we'd always go in the back way because there was a lot of fans and stuff, especially once we got closer to the game. And so obviously we won. We go in the back, so there's no one there. We have security and stuff. So we go up these escalators and you kind of go down, and the part of the hotel we kind of had, sectioned off all week for us. It's kind of off limits. You had to have, credentials to get into certain areas. And, I remember coming off and there was this ledge and you could overlook the whole downstairs hotel area. And, we step out and they saw us and they just erupted. I think everybody was having a lot of fun at the hotel bar. So that may have added to the fun and the noise, but we all went down there and they, all the fans were loving it. And it was just all the players, the fans, the coaches. And then, Coach Franklin comes 20 minutes later and held up the trophy up at the top, and everybody was going crazy. So it was a real cool experience. Definitely some of my favorite nights ever. And then, being at Penn State, some of the best memories I've ever had. So hopefully, we go do it again and do more.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Speaking of that now, that experience at the Penn State, I'll be going to the whiteout game. So it'll be my first whiteout game. And I am really looking forward to that. Now, I will I will be bringing books with me, so it'll be a little bit of a working trip during the day. I'm sure it'll be an 8 o'clock start, so I'll be exhausted, but I'll be carrying around and I'll probably sell, I would guess, 100 books. Meeting people, I'll have a ball, and then get to experience one of the greatest traditions that there is a Penn State whiteout game. That it always, if you read anything, it always ranks as one of the best atmospheres to be at. And I'm really excited. And it's not just, again, me going to a game now. It's me rooting for number 58 and 15. So I'll be watching with a more than just a rooting in for Penn State, but I'll probably be watching, I say, that offensive line performance more than anybody else except for Landon's family, because I'm sure they watch the same thing. But after them, I promise you, I may actually miss that bomb because I'll be watching the line play in that protection. And like I said, as the offensive line goes, and Landon's going to be a super key part of that, that will really, in my opinion, determine how the season goes.
And no offense to Jimmy Page or the Edge or Jack White, it might get loud. No. It's a Penn State whiteout. It will get loud. And if I'm not mistaken, this year it's Minnesota is the whiteout game this year. Is that right?
I think it's Iowa.
Iowa? Okay.
Wait, it better be Iowa because I have plane tickets and hotel reservations.
Iowa. Yeah.
If it's not, I'm in big trouble here. I got a lot of money invested into this. It better be the Iowa game.
Well, the game it should have been, Andy, would have created quite a conundrum for you. It should have been, since it's a home game, should have been the Michigan game later in the season. That should have been the whiteout, but you would have been torn allegiances. It's better this way.
There's no torn allegiance. And I told you, and Landon, I think, was out when we were talking about this. I'm not going to make anybody. I'll be rooting for both offensive lines. So
there you go. Very diplomatic. Very diplomatic.
Offense. Landon, don't get me in trouble with any of your defensive players, but I'm a loyal person all the way around. So it will be both offensive lines.
I hear
Spoken like a senator.
Yeah, obviously, we got Iowa for the whiteout. We're excited. Obviously, we're taking it one day at a time. We're excited. We're focused on West Virginia, but when the time comes, the last time we played Iowa, obviously I never got to play, but I was on that sideline, in Iowa. And for any Penn State fans that remember, when it was number 3 versus number 4, and they stormed the field and all that stuff. So, I definitely. In due time, I will not forget. Like I said, we got West Virginia first and other teams to handle, but definitely looking forward to that one.
Well, as we see over here, I'm an old schooler. I got the old Sugar Bowl pennant up there, but I'm glad to have West Virginia on the schedule. If not for renewing the rivalry, one game and like I said, 1 week at a time. I love that Coach Franklin does that. 1 week, just take care of the Mountaineers, kick them up and down the field like they used to back in the day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh God, yes, sir.
Oh yeah, you're old as hell.
I am. It's I walked that's where I fell in love with Penn State. My grandmother lived there in '82, and
that's awesome.
I realized this earlier this year after she passed away. She lived in State College from '82 to '86. Once she arrived there, championship, and then she leaves.
Wow,
Betty, we
Betty did it.
All love up above Betty. It was at Betty Gimlin, actually Betty Lucas at the time, Karma. But it's but again, well, Andy and Landon, thank you so much for doing this book. I think it's great, and Landon getting out there in the community, just truly representing Penn State. And I know that any Penn Stater who knows what the school represents, you are that to a T. So thank you very much for that. Looking forward to your adventures every week on the field in State College and beyond. So thank you for stopping here on All Over the Place with us. And Andy, make sure you check out his stuff over at shopexit56.com and get the Penn State books. And if I'm bridging a gap here. My brother, the middle brother, but he married into a Michigan family. So I'm going to be getting those books for them. But Penn State's his number 2 team, my nephew, also an offensive lineman. So working for them. So, he's He wants to go to at some point. We're going to go to a whiteout. He wants to experience Beaver Stadium because he tells me he hates going to games at the Big House, just too cramped there. So anyway, I'm making a side Penn Stater out of him, but it's But thank you guys so much for joining us here on All Over the Place. And Marty, Christine, always great to have the co-host with us here on All Over the Place. And we'll be back real soon here on All Over the Place, the official podcast of Media Pub Live.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
All Over the Place, where the fun sanity never ends.